Ain't no haters in sight, you know we about to get it cracking. Come on.
Sunday afternoon,
Yeah.
OGs be mobbing me, riding through the park till dark. They always prevail, no matter where you're at.
Right.
It's on, just find the spot and keep your game tight.
Let's go.
Welcome back, family, to another powerful conversation. Today we're sitting down with a Tulsa true legend, a pioneer who's been representing Oklahoma's hip-hop for over 3 decades. He's one half of the iconic duo Playya 1000 and Deeksta, and a voice that helped lay the foundation for the culture in our city. Brother, if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself to the people, let us know who you are and where you're from?
Yes, sir. Fred Frierson, a.k.a. Playya 1000, a.k.a. Freddie Fry, born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Now, you grew up in North Tulsa, correct?
North Tulsa, man.
What was life like for you growing up there, and how did that environment shape the man and the artist that you became?
I think for me, man, it was growing up, it was just like so many, we were there. Like it was so many faces that looked like me, and we just hung around each other. And, you know, we took the good with the bad with the good. You know, it wasn't like we were living this lavish lifestyle, but everything that's probably at the center of attention for the culture, hip hop culture, black culture, was all represented in my early upbringing.
My bad, my mic muted. But before the world knew you as Playya 1000, what was the moment when you first fell in love with hip hop and knew it was your path?
Crazy, man. I was into sports. Like I was seriously into basketball. I was into football. But I remember before we had all these different streaming services, Netflix and Hulu and all that, we had a little bit of cable TV, you know what I mean? And so it was this show on cable. It was called Night Tracks. And it came on real late. And I know I probably should have had my butt in the bed. I want to say maybe it was 82, 83, something like that. And they used to play videos, mainly like pop videos, rock videos. But this group, they debuted the video for this group called Run DMC. And there was a song called Rock Box. And I just happened to, I guess, turn to the channel right when they was debuting this song. And it was just like, I'd heard hip hop like Rappers Delight and stuff like that. But that one just really resonated with me. Run DMC, Rock Box. And it just like caught my attention. I was like, whoa. All you sucky MCs perpetrating the fraud. You're rising cold whack, keep the crowd on. And I was like, whoa, what in the world is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was just like enamored with Run DMC. And it just made me feel like, you know, dang, that's what I want to do. And it was only one problem though. I was like super shy. I was like introverted. And like, if I was in school and the teacher asked me to answer a question, I would always, if I had an option, respectfully decline. It was a hard pass, hard no.
Yeah.
And so that was my biggest obstacle. So I just started secretly becoming a rapper. You know what I mean? I was writing these raps, but I wasn't telling nobody. So that was my moment, that Rock Box, hearing Run DMC Rock Box. It just made me become this huge hip hop fan.
That's cool. Take me to the moment, you know what I'm saying, when you and the Deeksta met. You know what I mean? How did that partnership begin, and what made that chemistry so strong?
Well, it's crazy because, you know, as I was saying, I was kind of introverted and shy, so I wasn't even thinking I was going to ever be rapping in front of nobody. And there was this one guy named Ernest Walker, and he was kind of like the bridge between me and who I was dealing with, and then Deeksta and which is named Daryl Davis, and who D was dealing with. And so he basically kind of forced my hand in the rap because we had a talent show at McLean when I was a freshman. And he was like, man, you need to come be in this talent show with me, man. I was like, dude, you mean get on in front of people on stage? Like, hard pass. No, I ain't doing that. That dude came on my house like 14 days straight, man, just wearing me down. I think that 14th day, he was like, stop acting like a punk and go on and get on the stage, man. I was like, a punk. Before I knew it, I said yes, man. So up until that moment, I've been rewriting Run DMC raps. And I just made the decision, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to write my own rap. And so, man, it was just like the tryouts. And I got up there and busted my rhyme, and I was just like gone. It was like a whole change in my whole aura, and everything changed for me. And I just went from being a shy, introverted kid to like this confident hip hop artist. And I was getting bullied, and when I started rapping, everybody started being cool with me. They stopped bullying me. They started protecting me.
Yeah.
And so I was rapping, and then a couple other guys was rapping. I was with this guy named Kerry Jackson, who was like, we call him Kerry J.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knew Ernest, and then Ernest knew this other guy named Snoop. And so he was like, man, y'all need to connect. You and Kerry, Snoop, and Daryl, y'all need to connect. And so he invited Snoop and Daryl, which is D, over to my house. And so at that time, I thought I was a jack of all trades. I was a rapper. I was a DJ. I was trying to cut and scratch. And so D came over my house. I want to say I was maybe in the 10th grade. He was in 10th grade too. And we all met up. And so I'm doing my little dooka scratching. And he brought this old raggedy turntable over to the house. We in my garage. And he started scratching like, I mean, he was like scratching like he was from New York. I was like, whoa. Yeah. And so we decided to form this group. And so it was me, Kerry J, Snoop, and then it was actually this other guy named Goodo. We called him Bass Lord, and D. We called ourselves the DC Boys. And so we went to McLean. All of us went to McLean, and we just started. Kerry and Goodo were beatboxers. Kerry didn't even rap at first, and then me and Snoop were the rappers, and Daryl and D was the DJ. And so that's kind of how everything got started. And so we would be battle rapping people after the football games. That's how I met Dangerous Rob, because Dangerous Rob was in this group called Thought Mob. So yeah, DC Boys, you had Thought Mob. We probably were the most two popular groups. We were out of McLean. Thought Mob was basically like out of Rogers. And so we kind of started laying the foundation, and that's kind of how me and D met as members of the DC Boys.
So that was your sophomore year, you said?
Yep, 10th grade.
Do you remember your first track that you wrote?
First rap I wrote was a rap that I wrote that I said when I was in that talent show when I was scared. And I said, call me Mr. Chill or don't call me at all. They called me Mr. My rap name was Mr. Chill, Rap Master Chill then. Call me Mr. Chill or don't call me at all. Because when I'm on the mic, I'm standing tall. I'm 5'4" when I'm talking to you. But when I'm on the mic, I'm 7'2".
Yeah. I like it.
85, 86, man.
In the 90s, you had dropped that Reality, and then you dropped that Blame It on Society. Tulsa wasn't known at that time as a hip hop city, you know what I mean? But what was it like trying to build a rap career out of Oklahoma at that time?
It was crazy because I had such an entrepreneurial mindset, but didn't have no money. And so with the Reality deal, like DC Boys, it became pretty popular, right? But me and D were making songs faster than the other group members could keep up. And so I looked up and we might have had like 30 songs, but I was the only one on most of them. So I was so loyal to the group. I was like, let me create this alter ego and still be part of the group. So I came up with this Playya 1000 name because we did another group called Small Town Players, and me and Snoop were like members of that group. And so in the group, I call myself Playya 1000 Shadow 2, and he was Playya 2000 Shadow 1. And so I said, let me take this Playya 1000 alter ego and let's make it kind of be like this other rapper. I was Freddie Boy in the DC Boys, but I was Playya 1000 as that was my alias. Right. So I started doing these songs because I was like, I want to put something out. The other two members, they doing other things and they wasn't really in the studio like us. And so, but I still wanted to be cool with the group. I could never imagine not being part of the DC Boys because we did so much. And so when I did Reality, we were in the studio called Studio 10, legendary Studio 10. And Nine Miller talked about it. And I'd learned how to do everything in the studio and engineering. The guy that owned it, his name was Randy Hammondtree. Well, he had learned how to like create his own cassettes, like record them and then actually get the stamps printed to put the words on it. So that's what I did with Reality. I learned how to do that. And I don't know if you remember, I know you remember when everybody had the Jerry curls back in the 80s and 90s, right? So we had one of the largest healthcare products for Jerry curls was in North Tulsa, called Donnie's. I think it was American Beauty is what it was called, but they had the Donnie's Super Curl, and so it was just a big time company, like $1 million company, and so we connected with the guy that was doing artwork for that company for for American Beauty. And he did my album cover. So if you ever see the reality album cover, it's like a picture of like a butt with reality on the butt.
Okay.
And so I was doing everything hands-on, pressing my own cassettes. And that's kind of how everything started. And from there, after that, we got a little bit more serious because I had a little bit of success with that reality. People started kind of knowing who Playya 1000 was. And so when I started doing the Blame It on Society, I wanted to be bigger. But I had this entrepreneurial mindset. So I would go get like the hip hop magazines, like The Source and Rap Pages. And they would always have like showing for, in the book, it would have like listings of mom and pop stores across the country. And so I had this idea that when I did the Blame It on Society album, I pressed them up. I actually pressed up CDs, pressed up cassettes. Hey, we was in the streets trying to get that money. I remember, funny story, because everybody, that's when like crack kind of hit the town, like 85, 86, 87, 88. Crack kind of hit North Tulsa. And so the guys that I knew, they were like big drug dealers. And I was like, had no desire ever to sell drugs. But life kind of took me under, the hood took me under, and I had easy access to it. So I would get it from them and I would take it and give it to somebody. I was like the middleman. And so I never forget, I was in Apache Manor one time, and the police would come and everybody take off running. And so you take off running, you run to an apartment, you run behind a building until the police cleared out. So this time, a particular time, I thought they were cleared out. And so I come from behind the building, and they still sitting right there, and they looked at me and pointed at me. Man, I went and got in the car, my heart dropped. I was scared to death. And they was like, your name is Fred, ain't it? I was like, yeah. They said, the word on the street is you are a DC boy, you're a rapper, and you out here selling drugs to try to pay for studio time. I'm like, how in the world would they know that? They just let you know right then and there, people be talking. You know what I mean? So anyway, I was like, no, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. But I was trying to get to that money to get to that studio though, on the real. You know what I mean? And so I was able to press up those units. And so what I did was, when I pressed up Blame It on Society, I got those different, I took all those addresses and phone numbers of those mom and pop stores in Wichita, in Denver, Colorado, in Seattle, Washington, in Atlanta, Georgia, all of these places. And I would send them a promo CD, right? And basically soliciting them to purchase my CD. And what they would do is they would get the demo and they would play it overhead. And if people showed interest, they would call you back and buy CDs from you. And that's what happened. Well, Blame It on Society. Everywhere I sent it, they called back like, man, let me order some of those. I was like, I had this business selling Playya 1000 CDs out of my house. So I would just, when they ordered, I'd send it to them cash on COD, right?
Yeah.
And so from that, we got noticed because the company that pressed up our cover, they were called disc makers. So they reached out and said, man, we really like what you guys are doing. We'd like to cover you guys. Would you give us a testimonial? I was like, sure. I was like, I'll give you a testimonial. Of course, I don't know what they was going to do with it. So what they did is they would put these pamphlets out for disc makers, because that's mainly who everybody across the whole country, all independent artists, they had disc makers press their albums up, right? Their CDs and tapes and records. So they wind up putting me and D's Blame It on Society album in the pamphlet and had our quote in it. So they had a picture of our album and the quote, which kind of instantly made us known throughout the whole country.
That's dope. Yeah.
So it was because they put it in disc makers. I mean, they put it in the Source magazine. They put it in Rap Pack. So I was in all these magazines, right? So instantly, like Oklahoma and Tulsa had some recognition. So from that, this company called Selecto Hits reached out and was like, we'd love to, to nationally distribute your album, Blame It on Society. And I was like, cool. You know what I mean? Because they had 3-6 Mafia, they had 8 Ball and MJG, they had some pretty big artists on their label. And so we connected with them. And that's kind of how we started kind of getting Tulsa on the map, because we went from having this independent album to having a national, which now we know was international distribution.
That's dope.
It's crazy.
When you saw y'all on that magazine cover and that quote, like, what was your response?
Man, I was like, that was like back in the day when, it ain't like now where everybody's on social media. So when you did something like that, man, everybody got behind. You had your haters, but I had a lot of support. We had a lot of support. I just jumped up and ran and jumped around in my house, man. Like I called Daryl on the home phone. Called him on the home phone.
Yeah.
And said, dude, you ain't gonna believe this, man. It was crazy. The town was like, they was tripping because it was just like a big deal. It was like a big deal.
Yeah. The grind was different back then as far as, y'all had to actually get out there. Like you say, you took those numbers down. You had to actually network, whereas today's time, they could just upload it and it'll go all these different platforms. You know what I mean? And so
way different, man. Way different. You had to get on the road. So when we hooked up with Selecto Hits, they set us a tour. Set a tour up on the way to go to Freaknik. We were performing at Freaknik. They had us set up to perform at Freaknik in Atlanta. Yeah. So we went to Memphis because that's where they were set up at. They were out of Memphis. And it was us and this group called Funkaholics. Well, one of the members of the Funkaholics, his name was Phelan. His daddy was one of the only surviving members of the R&B group, classic R&B group, the Barcades.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So we on the road with them. We went to Memphis, we went to Birmingham, we went to Chattanooga, and all these places, going in, radio interviews, performing. It was just incredible. It was incredible. Well, Jazzy Faye winds up turning out. I mean, Phelan winds up being Jazzy Faye, the producer Jazzy Faye that did Sierra and some of those people. That's who Phelan is. So we riding around with him and going on tour. It was bananas. But yeah, you had to get out. You had to sell it out your trunk. You had to do what I did. And I mean, I was blessed because, man, I was generating a good amount of income with Playya 1000 just because I had all these stores they were selling out. Like when I sent them music, they would sell out and reorder. So it was crazy. So we had all these pockets where we were known. And one cool thing I did, and I tell all the young artists, man, make sure you're about your business and make sure your business is straight. When we signed with Selecto Hits, they gave me an option. It was like, you can either sign directly to our label or you can keep your label, which at the time my label was called Federal Entertainment. No, Small Town Recordings at the time. And they were like, you can either keep your label and we'll just give you a pressing and distribution deal. I said, I want to keep my label and I want you guys to do a pressing and distribution deal, but I want you guys to send me product so I can, because I got a distribution deal that I'm doing with these mom and pop stores. And man, I was selling a lot of units. They didn't realize I was going to be selling so many units because they basically was like, yeah, we'll give you. They basically was giving me my product free.
Yeah.
But they didn't know they was going to have to give me so many units because I was selling a lot of them. It was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like that when that magazine reached out to you, it sounded like everything went up from there.
It did. It really did. Yeah. Yeah.
You had that Sunday afternoon, the track you did Sunday afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, that was after that. So the album after Blaming on Society was called More Drama, and so we were in the studio called Chaptown. So we had graduated from Studio 10, and we hooked up with this guy named Leo KK, and Leo was from Boston, and he was married to I'm go back to American Beauty, Donnie Supercurl. He was married to the owner of Donnie Supercurl. He was married to her daughter. Well, Leo is he's just a genius. Like Leo is a musical genius, just like phenomenal. He was in Boston working with New Edition. He produced the song for Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Marky Mark, which is Mark Wahlberg, the actor now. But he produced his #1 pop song called, I think it's Good Vibrations. But he was in Boston doing it big. And I don't know why, for some reason he came to Tulsa and we got the benefit of he's so good at everything he was doing. And so we hooked up with him and we went in the studio. We was recording this album, and it was so crazy because it was always something going on at the studio. So it was so crazy that we named the album Mo Drama. Like every day it was Mo Drama in that studio. And so it was like life. Every day in life is Mo Drama. And so we recorded that album, and on the Blaming on Society album, I had a song called Mobbing. And one of my lines on that song was, and here's where it starts: Sunday afternoon at O'Brien Park. And so I was like, man, we want to make a song because of what we did every Sunday. You know, we go to Tasty Freeze in the afternoon. There was a car wash right in back of Tasty Freeze. People washing their cars, we hanging out, everybody eating, chilling. And then from there, we would head to Tasty Freeze and just be chilling. I said, I need to capture this song. And so I, wrote the song. We decided on what music we was gonna get. It was like this SOS band, which is crazy because we had took a sample of a song called "Even When You Sleep" from SOS band, and on the Blame It on Society album, we did a song called "Black on Black Crime" to that beat. But Leo was so cold, we was like, man, we want you to take this music and replay it for us. So he replayed it, and it was just, man, incredible. So we was in the studio, and this guy named Tim Dobbins came in. This kind of how we knew it was gonna be. We didn't know what we did at the time until he came in, and we was like letting him hear the album. And so he's listening to the album. And when he got to Sunday afternoon, he just like started pointing at the speaker, pointing at the cassette tape. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one right there. That's the one right there. And then he went lying. That was definitely the one. That song, man, it just
did you think it was going
to places we never could imagine.
Did you think it was going to be as big as it was when you were recording it?
No, I had no idea. I just was capturing the essence of what we did every week. I didn't realize that everywhere else people did the same thing. They just might have they went to different places and called it something different. But, it was a few big moments with that record. One of them was when we was going to Freaknik to perform and just standing like, you don't realize how much of an impact you're making until you realize it. So we just standing on the corner, just hanging out, kind of promoting, and the car just drives by playing Sunday Afternoon. You know what I'm saying? Like a car in Atlanta drove by playing. We was like, what the, you know what I mean? And then you meeting people and they got your album. Like, man, I got your album. You know what I mean? It was crazy. It was bananas.
Tell me about one of your most memorable times, you know what I mean? Like on tour, or, you know what I mean, on the road, you know what I mean? Like, what was this one that you just won't, like, you can't forget?
I got two. Well, I got three. One of the first ones was when we got the call to be an opening act for Ice Cube and E40 and the Click at Lloyd Noble in Norman, and then getting to meet Ice Cube and getting to meet E40 and getting to be on that stage, like that big stage, it was crazy. And then, I've done shows with Too Short, several shows. I went on a little mini tour with Too Short, super cool. But the Ice Cube, because I was like an Ice Cube, diehard Ice Cube fan at the time, And so to get to meet him and get to be a part of that was one. The second one was, in 2005, when me and Dia kind of took a break from the music, I got a call from Dangerous Rob. If you haven't did Dangerous Rob, you definitely need to try to interview Dangerous Rob, because Rob, I would say DC Boys Style Mob are kind of the founding fathers of hip hop, in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. And I always talk about Nitro and SB the Grindaholic and Bucket Low, some of the guys in Oklahoma City. It was like a group of us, you know what I mean? They was doing the big over there, we was doing the big over there and over here. And the connector was the radio station. And so they play their songs over here on the radio station, they play ours over there. So we were always really cool, but they were the founders over there. So we all were kind of like collectively the founding fathers of hip hop in Oklahoma. But Rob is definitely one of them. And he still does stuff to this day. But Rob called me, said, man, there's this guy trying to get in touch with you, because we did an album after Mo Drama called For the Meal Ticket. Well, I got custody of my kids. I had 4 kids at the time. I was like 26, 27, and I was raising 4 kids by myself. So I kind of was like stepping away from the music a little bit, raising babies, man. And so I get this call. My kids got a little older, and he was asking about that album. He was like, man, you still got any more of those For the Meal Ticket albums? I was like, yeah, I still got some. I was like, man, I'm raising these kids. He said, you want to sell some of them? I said, sure. And so he was like, I'll buy 20 of them off of you for $20 a piece. And at that time, that's unheard of. You pay $6 or $7 for a wholesale album, So I send him the records. He sends me the money. I send him the CDs. He calls me back a week later. It's like, bro, You still got some more? I said, yeah, I got some more of them CDs. It's like, send me that money. I need that money. I'm raising these babies.
Yeah.
Sends it to me. I send him the CDs. Bang. Calls me a week later. He said, bro, I need some more CDs. He said, but I'm curious as to why you haven't asked what I'm doing with your CDs. I said, bro, I don't even really care, you know. And so this is probably 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you buy a computer? I said, yeah. So I went to the computer. He said, go to eBay and type in Playya 1000. And dude, when I typed in Playya 1000, eBay it just blew my mind, dude. Blew my freaking mind. They were auctioning off our CDs. We had somehow stumbled up on this overseas underground fan base, and they were bidding on our CDs, bro. And the winning bid might be $600 for one CD.
Oh, wow.
And so he was putting those 20 CDs on an auction. And so if somebody wanted, say they wanted for $558, well, he could go back and sell second chance offers to all those bidders that lost. So he might sell one for $557, $555, $550, $400. So he was making about $10,000 off those 20 CDs.
Yeah, $20. Yeah, 20. Yeah.
He was sending me $400, but making about $10,000. You know, and I was like, what the? You know, I had no idea that it happened, and that's how we knew. We always talk about that Selecto Hits wasn't being genuine. They wasn't telling us giving us all the information. We had no idea our records were going overseas. No idea. And we had this big following in Japan, this big following in Germany, in Australia, all these places, Russia, underground following. And so, yeah, so they buying our records for all this money. And 9 Miller, I don't even know if 9 Miller told you this, but because I worked with 9 Miller as 44 Click. Well, 44 Click had an album called Mind of a 44. And they wanted that CD so bad, they'd spend a couple of $1,000s for that CD back in the day. For one CD. It's crazy.
See, I didn't know you and Miller had. I didn't know you was part of the 44 Click.
I wasn't. I just engineered and helped them produce they songs when they came in Studio 10. Okay. So remember when he said Playya 1000, they work with me? I was the engineer at the studio. Okay. So quick fact about Studio 10. So it was a guy named Delmar in Studio 10. Well, Delmar is Daz Dillinger from the Dog Pound. So Delmar was working in the studio back then when he was like 17 or 18. And he was telling us all this stuff that was happening on the West Coast. And of course, we thought he was lying. He's like, I'm out, I'm going back and forth to California. I'm working with Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg is my first cousin. We like, bro, stop. Wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. You know what I mean? So, and there was another guy named Lightfoot, who's became this big Indian rapper. He was in a movie called Indian in the Cupboard. So it was just like Studio 10 is legendary. Like Crooked Eye was in Studio 10. I worked with, his name is Dominique. I worked with him, and he went on and signed with Death Row, was on and still doing stuff to this day, and very strong rapper. He was like incredible when I was working with him. I'm like, dude, you really good. You know what I mean? But he's Crooked Eye, so Crooked King Crooked now. But so yeah, man, it was just spending crazy amounts of money for our CDs. And so he's like, man, you just seem so cool. I want to do some business with you. So yeah, we started pressing up stuff and all kind of stuff and sending it overseas. And so that was the second one that just really blew my mind. And the third one was when the guy from Japan reached out to us in 2015. He's like, man, we want to bring y'all over to Yokohama, Tokyo to do a show. He's like, huh? And I don't like to fly. Like D likes to fly. I was like, I ain't trying to do all that. He's like, well, we're going to pay y'all this. And we're going to pay y'all to do an exclusive Japan album. And it's going to be crazy. And everything he said was true. So we went over there in 2016, and it was sold out show. It was, man, fans on a whole nother level. We signing autographs, signing shoes, signing hats, grown men crying. It was incredible, man. It was just crazy. It really was.
That sounds like a dope event.
We was the headliner. We was the only one on the show. So it was like, that's how crazy. It was packed.
Going back to when you were saying, like D-Rob, shout out to D-Rob. We supposed to be having something coming soon.
Good.
But, When people call you one of the founding fathers of Tulsa hip hop, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
How does that title sit with you?
It sits well with me, man, because I remember when it wasn't anything here. I remember sitting in my room in my house back in North Tulsa and asking myself, it's just came into my brain. How are they recording these songs? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then going into the yellow pages, you know what I mean? Looking up studios. I was like, I wonder if we got studios in Tulsa, and finding a studio and us going to the studio and recording and it being hard and us meeting Leo and meeting all the people that we met. And, like now you can have a computer, you can go buy a beat and record your own songs. Back then it was hard. Like you had to be serious that's why I tell people all the time, it was a lot of people that was rapping back then. But the only way you get labeled as a legend or you get labeled as a founding father is you had to have an impact. Like not everybody had an impact. DC Boys had an impact. Playya 1000, Deeksta had an impact. Thought Mob had an impact. Dangerous Rob had an impact. Nitro had an impact. SB the Groundaholic had an impact. Bucket Loke had an impact. You know what I mean? So many of these guys had an impact, early on before it was anything. And what it was is like people like Steph Simon and all them, St. Dom and all them, they don't tell me verse. They tell us that, bro, like you gave us hope. Like we hearing you on the radio. It made us want to do, So yeah, no, it sits very well with me because I know all the work that we had to put in to establish, even establish a thought process of Oklahoma having rappers.
Yeah, that's why I say y'all. That's why I'm thankful and thank you for giving me your time on here. I'm gonna say that while we're
sure.
You know what I mean? Because you are one of the founding fathers. You are a legend in the town. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't be no Tulsa rap artist if it wasn't for you, Rob, and those that you named. It's a lot that I don't know. You know what I mean? But I'm a younger generation. But you know what I mean? Like I salute y'all for what y'all doing, and what y'all did.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Appreciate you reaching out to us for sure.
When you look back at the grind and the sacrifices, what were some of the hardest lessons that you learned in the industry?
I think one of them was, like I said, when I said that we had no idea that our music was being sent overseas. It's just like really digging into those contracts and really finding the blueprint. They'd send us an invoice and be like, hey, you guys generated $100,000, but we spent 102. You know what I mean? Like, so we owe y'all, you owe us money. Yeah, those type of things. Just you look back and you wish you would have dug a little bit deeper into the paperwork. I know that we probably would have made it bigger had we left Oklahoma, at least for a short period of time. But my whole goal was always to make it from Oklahoma. I want to make it from here. You know what I mean? So I did everything myself, and in a sense we did, but we would have been a lot bigger. We did too much. We had too much success independently. Had we been on a major label, it would have been like Sunday Afternoon would have just been a monster had it been on a major label. So those are things I look back on. But for the most part, I'm pretty content. I'm pretty happy with the way we did it because we did it our way, and we still had a lot of success and a lot of good things came out of it.
What moment in your career made you stop and think like, yeah, we really did something important for the city?
I think when I sit back and look at, I think maybe Fire in Little Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe when Steph and those guys reached out to us, sometimes you working in the background and you don't really realize the impact you had. But it was so many of those artists, like my boy King Cut, and we got to do songs with all of them that just we found out how much we meant to the town just by being invited to be in the rooms and have a voice for Fire in Little Africa. So I think that moment really told us a lot.
When you're speaking of talking about Fire in Little Africa, what did that mean to be a part of that to you?
Again, I think it was just the honor. I think we were just, they were like, we want to have a lot of newer artists, but we want to pay homage to a legend. And me and D, we were really the only legends that were part of we didn't even make the album But just to be in that, in Greenwood when all the artists were there, and you realize how far hip hop has come, and it was some powerful moments in there. It was a lot of good artists, and then seeing the Oklahoma City artists that came down, and kind of the unity, and just knowing what it stood for, and me and D really understanding it. D's really connected to Black Wall Street even more than I am, but it was very impactful and really powerful. So it was an honor just to be in those rooms and realize that these guys are doing something pretty big.
Yeah, and then like you saying, seeing the unity from Oklahoma City and Tulsa and having them people.
Lawton too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was beautiful then. I know that was a beautiful event.
Definitely.
But you've had recordings in places like excuse me. You've had recordings in places like Greenwood and the old Tate Brady mansion. How did that atmosphere affect the energy of your performance?
Man, I think I think what affected me even more, is just, dude, it's some rapping hyenas out there. You get in a booth and Steph Simon is around, and St. Dom is around, and Verse is around, and King Cut is around, and JB is around, and you know what I mean? It's like these dudes is like hyenas out here. And it's like, so you got the aura of the ancestors, you got the aura of different things that happen in these certain walls, behind these walls, and what they stand for, and you got these great rappers. And it's like, if that don't turn you up, if that don't light you, put a battery in your back, I don't know what will. So I had all these forces going to just try to bring out the best in me, and I learned a lot too. You don't know what you don't know until you know, and just learning how they go about doing their music and how they write, and the mindset. It's so funny because the song structures are so different a lot of times for these artists. Like before, like when we started, we would come up with the title and the topic and the hook, and like they'll do a song now and they'll just be rapping, and somebody will say something cool in the line, and that's what the name of the song will be. I was like, oh, that's how we doing it now. I learned a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen it where some of them would come with the hook first, like you said, or they get the hook out of whatever the verse is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But what message were you hoping to leave behind through that project? You know what I'm saying? Both to Tulsa and for the world.
For me, I wanted our voices to respectfully allow the world to hear our voice, and know that if you live in Tulsa and you walk the sacred grounds of Tulsa, there's an extra layer of anointment on you, and there's an entrepreneurship unlike any other that just lives in you. Like it just lived in me, and I never knew why.
Mm-hmm. That's some ancestors of Greenwood inside us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I feel.
That's it.
Over the years, you know what I mean, you also moved into motivational speaking. You know what I mean, working with the youth, you know what I mean, doing community events or community give backs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? What made you take a step? What made you take that step beyond music?
For me, if anybody goes back, and I tell people all the time, because I coach basketball and have a company called Court Time Events. I host youth basketball tournaments. I do this thing that's called a Student Athlete Success Series, and during the events, we'll bring a group of girls and boys in, and we'll pour life into them. We'll feed them. We'll have speakers, and just really try to help them be prepared for life on and off the court. People, so I tell everybody, okay, there's two different sides of Playya 1000, but it's all still the same person. So they were like, "Can I hear your music?" I said, "Yeah. If you hear anything before 2000, I'm gonna be cussing like a sailor. Everything after 2000 is clean." But one thing about when me and D, like that's my best friend, and so when I gained custody of my kids in '96, we stopped doing music, and we never talked about it. Like we stopped doing music for like 7 or 8 years, and we still was best friends, never talked about it until I got that call about them buying the guy selling our albums on eBay. And that sparked something. My kids had got a little older, and I was like, dude, we need to go in here and clean up some of our songs. because even when I was doing Blame It on Society and Mo Drama, most of the songs always had a message. They always were saying something. Hip hop saved my life because when I started writing, I was able to get, that was my positive release. I was able to get everything off my chest. And so if you go back and listen to my albums, I was always getting things off my chest and always trying to let the world know how it felt to be a young Black kid living in the inner city, and not just in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but anywhere, because they looked at us like they wondered why we acted the way we acted. And so anytime I got on a, if I wasn't telling one of my stories, I was telling other young Black male stories. And I was trying to let, if you wasn't from the hood, I wanted you to be able to listen to my album, listen to my verse, and it takes you in the mind of an inner city youth. You know what I mean? And how we're thinking and why we do the things that we do. And so I was always trying to be an advocate, you know, for North Tulsa and inner city youth, because we in a sense we were tripping, but our environment was the way our environment was. And so we were just trying to survive. And so I was always trying to paint those pictures. But at the end of the day, I would say, here's a situation, here's what caused the situation, and here's the solution. That's how most of my songs were set up, even when I was 21 years old. And so all I did was just take those songs, clean them up, take out the profanity. And I've always been motivationally rapping. I've always been saying something to make you think. I've always been, you know, trying to bring out the best in not only our people, but people in general. So when we got back to rapping, when I said, D, we need to clean up some of these songs, I knew I would never say a quote unquote cuss word in the song again. And so it just logically turned into motivational hip hop. And then I decided that I was going to reinvent myself. So I got Playya 1000 on the motivational hip hop. And then I created Freddie Fry for just regular motivation, everyday power ups and motivational speaking. And I hooked up with the #1 motivational speaker in the world, Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher. And, you know, and I just been out here doing some cool stuff, man. Just mentoring and adding positive energy to the world and touching as many people as I can, giving back, man.
And I salute you for that. You know what I mean? And we salute you. I mean, the community, we appreciate you for everything you've done.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
But if you could sit down with a young child from North Tulsa who's trying to find their way, what's the first piece of wisdom that you'll try to give them?
Give yourself grace. You got to mess up. You got to mess it up in order to get it right. So learn from everything that you go through and everything that you do, because the battle is always the #1 battle you'll ever face is you versus you. And it's super hard to conquer that. But when you make a mistake, learn from it, give yourself grace, and don't limit yourself. Get out and see what this world has to offer and figure out what your gift is and work as hard as you can to share it with the world. And if you can find a way to make a living operating in your gift, you'll never feel like you worked a day in your life.
How important is it for you, or how important is it for artists to balance chasing their dreams and giving back to the community?
You know, I think that each one of us are individuals and we're wired different. So I think that one of my sayings is, when you give with no expectations, the day will come when you'll receive with no limitations. And that's how I live my life. But, you know, I'm never one to tell somebody else how to live their life. I think that you just genuinely and naturally give yourself a little bit of favor when you do well and you give back.
That's real. You still creating and dropping new music like that came through. What's inspiring the pen to keep creating right now? What's inspiring that creativity?
You know, again, it comes back. I would say Fire Low to Africa kind of re-sparked us again. The motivational side of life re-sparks it too. But we're just having fun with it now. You know what I mean? It's definitely a situation where we definitely not out here saying, "Oh, we trying to make it. We want to be big." We just trying to make a difference. And so if I can say something that's clever and witty that touches somebody and makes them think a little different and makes them maybe change courses, change directions when they might have been headed down a bad path, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And a lot of those songs we got to do when we did Fire in Little Africa, like, we did a song with Steph, we did a song with Verse, we did a couple of songs with Jay Friday, did a song with King Cut, we did a song with St. Dom. So a lot of those songs, matter of fact, we're about to release a song that we did with St. Dominique called Elevate. It should have been out. I'm been so busy, I ain't got to finish editing the video, but it's about to come out too. So yeah, I just love hip hop. And so whenever I get a chance to sit down and write and try to keep up with some of these young bucks, then I just have fun and do it.
Now, is that the next project, or are there any more projects we can be looking for?
I think we got one more project for sure. It's called a Push Through Project. And that's just, giving people the strength to push through everything you're going through in life. So we got some songs we haven't released yet, and I think we're going to put them all together on that Push Through. And when we release that Elevate video, it'll come out shortly after.
Okay. Well, at this stage of your career, what do you want your legacy to be?
I just want people to say, hey, Playya 1000, Freddie Fry came through and he left this world a little bit better than he found it.
And I got two more questions before we wrap it
Sure.
up. And I want to thank you again. But for the youth, for the fans, and for Tulsa, what's the message that you want to leave with us today?
Put yourself in a position, put yourself in a position by walking in the right light, making the right decisions, giving yourself grace to make each and every day of your life a Wednesday. We're trying to win, just like this shirt, WINS.
Yeah.
Wake up every day, you're trying to win that day. And that don't mean it's going to be perfect. It just means it's going to be ups and downs, and you're going to push through, and you learn from that day. You messed it up. Now you're going to fix it. You're going to give yourself grace, and you're going to wake up tomorrow and try again. But before you lay your head on that pillow, you're going to say, you know what? I won that one. You're going to go try again the next day. Make each and every day of your life a Wednesday, man.
I like that. I ain't even think I like how you show. I like that. And my last question, where can people follow you, support your music, and stay tapped in with what you're doing?
Man, it's pretty easy. You got, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, X, social, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's Playya 1000, PLAYYA. The numbers 1000. Just put in that. It's a whole bunch of stuff's gonna come up. You put in Playya 1000 in Google, you're gonna go down a dark hole, a great hole. Just like for hours you can just be listening to stuff and reading stuff and getting all kind of great information. Or for motivation, go to Freddie Fry, FREDDY space FRI, Freddie Fry Motivation. You can find me. You can Google that or just put it in, and I'm gonna pop up. I got something to say. I'm out here. I'm out in these social media streets saying something.